Welcome back to the Hatton for Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror franchises. I'm Mark,
I'm Tawan.
I'm Elian.
and today we will not be reviewing. Instead, we will be ranking the Alien franchise. We've come to the end of our Alien retrospective, and it's time for us to do what we usually do and rank the movies. Please note this is being recorded before Alien Romulus, so it would not be included in our ranking. So, to kick us off, Tuan, what's in your sixth spot at the bottom?
At the bottom for me would be Alien Resurrection. Um, I really just did not um, feel this movie at all. I didn't really care for the whole like cloning of Ripley, and once franchises start getting into stuff like that, where they have to resort to bringing back the main character who we killed off, but in some miraculous way they are like brought back as like a clone or something like that. I feel like we've we've reached a bit of a peak, and we also know at this point what is driving the franchise. And if it's not the story or the universe, and it's just that one character, then that means that everything else that was done afterwards, um, with that character in mind, or just in the universe in general, just wasn't fleshed out enough for it to continue. And that's usually a telltale sign that maybe we should stop here, because we gotta do all of the extra stuff. So um, for me, I definitely feel that Resurrection is at the bottom for me. I really don't see myself rewatching that one at all. Um, yeah, it's definitely bottom of the barrel for me.
Well, for me, in my number six spot is also Alien Resurrection. That movie was god awful and it wasn't needed. I felt like, as messy as Alien 3 was, it gave us the perfect ending to Ripley's story. She sacrificed herself to save everyone else. Like, that was amazing. That's a good way to end a character's, like, trilogy journey. And to bring back this clone Ripley that had these, like, powers and strength and had that weird lesbian relationship romance with the robot was too much. And you had the a movie that shouldn't have been made, so that's at my bottom spot. Elian, what's in your sixth spot?
It's also Alien Resurrection, to be honest. Um, I just found it a little odd, especially like what you said with the xenomorph, like the hybrid. Uh, I was not understanding what the lesbian relationship was really about. It didn't really have much to the story, to be honest. But on top of that, I just felt like it lacked terror and suspense. This film, like I didn't feel anything. The dialogue was bad in my opinion, and honestly, I was really like shocked and disappointed with the poor the poor performance from the cast. And I felt like Hollywood was trying too hard, especially like Ripley being a clone, giving like you said, giving her all these powers. Just like they were just trying too hard to impress the audience. When in reality, it was just like it was just doing too much, in my opinion.
Well, what's in your fifth spot?
My fifth spot, I will have to say, I'm gonna be very honest. It's either between the number Alien 3 and Covenant. Um, I'm gonna say Alien 3 for now. It could change. Like I said, I it's in both of them fight for that spot. Um, just the very bad graphics. I don't I don't know how to explain too much of it, just due to the fact that it's just like I wasn't expecting this kind of film to be like, if I'm to be honest with you. That's just my opinion on it. I don't know how to give you an explanation at the moment, but I just I felt like they were just trying to make, especially with the alien dog. I was just like they were just trying to show like the xenomorph can literally mutate into anything given its host. That's all I could say for now.
Tuan, what about you? What's in your fifth?
I think in my fifth spot, would have to put Alien Covenant. I was, kind of teetering the line like Elion was between Covenant or 3 being in this spot, but I go with Covenant um, because it is still like very fresh in my mind. And while I did dislike 3, this one I felt was a little more for even more forgettable than that one was. And coming off of Prometheus and this being like a direct sequel to that, it was a more boring movie. Like definitely when I was watching it, it just did not give me. Um, I just really wasn't entertained while watching it. It was a good stretch of time where I felt like not much was happening, and they try to set up like the story in the beginning with the husband of like our main character, like dying in the sleep pod and everything, and like giving us like an emotional like weight like early on. But I didn't really feel anything with that happening. And then once we actually get to the planet and everything starts happening, it's it definitely felt like a callback to the first one, because it's like, well, you guys are some of the smartest people that we have, but y'all are stepping on like unknown planet, messing with unknown materials, like touching stuff. And now we have like this whole issue, which that happens a lot in this series. But um it felt like very egregious here, especially since they're supposed to be the ones doing like starting like a whole like colony on a different planet, and you putting all these people on this ship at risk of like possibly getting infected or killed when the whole goal is to get to a new planet, populate, and settle down. And then we have the whole thing with the two clones of the synthetics. It just wasn't really hitting to me. I felt like Michael Fassbender's performance wasn't as strong in this one as it was in Prometheus. Even though he was still one of my favorite parts of like Covenant, it just wasn't as strong of a performance. And that was kind of like the main thing in general. This one, the whole cast like was not that good. Our main like actress, who was the like scientist and like kind of head of the ship, she really wasn't doing much. The tertiary cast didn't really do much either. It just really kind of like felt forgettable. um Same way off of Resurrection, I really don't see myself going back to like rewatch this one. And if it wasn't honestly, if it wasn't for this show, I probably wouldn't have seen it again.
Well, just like you guys, I was going back and forth between Covenant and Alien 3. But like Tuan, I went with Covenant because I don't know. I just felt like Prometheus, with all those faults, it set up like it left good groundwork for where the sequel should have went. And instead of following that what was left for them, they went in a completely different direction, and it didn't work for me. And like I said in the review, it felt like they were just repeating some of the same beats from not just Prometheus, but from all the other movies that came before it, and it didn't really have its own identity. Like for the most part, the five that came before it had like its own identity. You knew which movie you were watching, but I feel like this one tried so hard to take parts of each of the ones that came before it that it just got lost. And like you, Tawan, I didn't enjoy Michael Fassbender's performance, and I didn't like David in Prometheus, and I didn't need David back for this one. And then all the David and Walter scenes, it was a no for me. So that's why back to number five, and for number four, I have Alien 3. it's the thing that put Alien 3 at the four spot instead of the fifth spot is because I actually I think the way it ends with Ripley sacrificing herself is like the perfect way to end that initial trilogy, and it's true to Ripley. Like she really in those first three movies did all she could to not like make sure that she survived or make sure that everyone else survived. She was always looking out for everyone else, and that ending scene of her sacrificing herself is the only reason why it's at number four instead of at five. But what about you, Elion? What's in your number four spot?
Yeah, it'll be Covenant, just due to the fact that even though and this one's still the freshest one because obviously it's the last one we reviewed, but um, even though I did enjoy it, like I remembered I said Cash and Pass, after doing this review and hearing both of you guys input on the film, it did open me up to be like, okay, you know what? I see where the I see it, and I honestly actually did watch it a second time, and I was just like, okay, yeah, I get it now. I felt like the storyline was elongating. It was not going. It was not really too. It was going kind of slow pace, even like as much as like I was trying to get to know these characters. Like it just felt like after watching it a second time, it was just like, okay. The reason why I gave like a better review on it was just due to the fact that even though I kind of watched some glimpse of it, it was secondly the first time I watched it, and that's why I was more intrigued by it. Um, but I felt like even though I did enjoy getting a little bit of like the origins of how like the xenomorphs were made, it was just like how do I say, like you said, Mark, it also wasn't needed because you kind of like just let it be as it is. On top of that, I felt with the white xenomorph, they were trying to do what they did with the hybrid was it, yeah, in Aliens 3. And it's just more of like I felt like they were just reusing and recycling more things to put in this film.
Tawan, what's in your fourth spot?
Well, my fourth spot will be Alien 3. So, this one, kind of wrapped up the OG, like Ripley story, but it still, it didn't really feel like that earned from what we, got here. This was a very, like, weird way this to take this story, especially with what we got. Um, the whole like sexual like assault scene that happened with Ripley, that was weird. Um, the way they they kind of made it, they tried to make it like different in this one by having the xenomorph or was it called a xenomorph in this one, or did we have a
I think it was it Neomorph?
no
No, I don't
neomorph that
remember to
was
be
in
fair.
Well,
I just
Covenant?
remember
the human the human hybrid thing was a newborn.
Hmm?
It was called a newborn. My bad.
The one that came out the dog.
Wait, you're talking about?
I'm talking about three.
Oh, I thought that was still. I thought that was still a xenomorph. Wasn't it still a xenomorph? I don't think it had like a different name
Okay,
because it
no,
was
that's
in a
that's what
dog.
that's what I was asking. I was asking, was it still just like xenomorph?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I don't think they had like a different name for that. Hmm.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, they tried to do a little differently by having the xenomorph like come through a dog this time around, but that I mean that's not really like a big change. That's in my opinion. That's just something that
uh and to be honest, I'm so sorry to cut you off, Twan. I just wanted to add what you said about that, about the dog thing. Just like if they were gonna add that, I was hoping maybe a little bit more to it, maybe in the future, but it just stayed in one film. That's why I was always just like, what was the point and the purpose of it?
yeah, but I will say the only reason I rank this one above like Covenant, one, Sigourney Weaver, like she saves it a lot. just with her acting. Also, Charles Dance, he's a really good actor. He was like the doctor on board in the movie. I've seen him in other stuff, more specifically in like Game of Thrones, but he was a very good actor. And like some of the other like characters that we had, like they were like pretty well acted, but everything else here just really wasn't um really wasn't sitting right. I don't know if and I don't know if it was just like the story, the direction, which for this to be a film directed by David Fincher, I'm still surprised at that to this day. I do know this was his first like directorial like debut, so cut a little bit of slack, and that he was kind of given a rough job from the studio. Like they kind of were on him in regards to like stuff that they wanted in the movie, stuff to not. So I know this was just like kind of like overall rough production of a movie. So you can kind of feel that when watching it. It doesn't really come together as good as it should have, and it definitely shows.
Whoa, what's in your third spot, Tuan?
For me, in my third spot, I will put Prometheus. Um, I like Prometheus a lot, and I know we're like ranking things in context of the Alien franchise, but um, just as its own thing, like Prometheus, like it just feels like a really like put together movie, like a really good sci-fi movie. But in the context of the Alien of like Alien and trying to be like a prequel to it, um, it definitely feels a little out there, which I know that's like saying a lot. Speaking, that we're talking about a franchise called Alien, and we have like things called we have face huggers and stuff like that in this series, but it definitely felt a little out there with where they kind of where Ridley Scott took the plot, and that adds to it being a bit more interesting that the creator of the franchise decided to come back so that he could give us like the prequels, kind of like a George Lucas X type thing with that he did with like Star Wars. So it is interesting always when like the creator wants to come back to do that type of thing, but I don't know if it was necessary for this franchise. Like I'm sure, people always had questions as to where they came from, but it wasn't one of those things that really needed to be looked into as much as we, got with this movie and then eventually Covenant. But I still like the movie. Like visually, this movie is very good looking. I like the score in this movie. I feel like the effects look really good. They had a very good cast in this movie as well. Like most of the actors here are have like gone to do like really good things like further along. So that's kind of like a big strong point here as well that I feel like saved it, and why some of the other movies like behind this one kind of failed with their casting choices. But yeah, this one had like that strong one, and then everything else as well. Now, the lore stuff is where it kind of falls a little off for me with the whole like engineers and how that all kind of go into play. But it wasn't like it wasn't the worst thing, but I also could see how some people really wouldn't know that this is associated with Alien, um, just like watching this one without any other context.
Well, we are on the same wavelength because my number three is also Prometheus. For most of the same reasons, but I kind of, the lore itself was kind of all over the place and crazy, but I kind of like the concept and the theme around it. It's just knowing that it's not really explored that much more, and the in Covenant kind of ruins the potential that this movie gives. And I like the characters. I wish we would have actually spent more time like with a xenomorph. I mean, there were all types of aliens in this movie, in that movie, but the xenomorph itself, and we watch an alien movie for the xenomorph, not for the engineers or some zombified humans or whatever that big like octopus type thing was. It looked nice. It was really good, and I liked it for the most part. It could have been better. It's just it's ruined by the fact that Covenant kind of ignores it. Elion, what's in your third spot?
It's also Prometheus. Um, I did like what was it? I don't think I have any words to describe Prometheus. Like obviously, I didn't even know it was supposed to be part of the Alien franchise at all because I think that was kind of like a surprise at first. Um, the script was just a little odd to in my opinion. That's all I could think of. It was more of like how do I say it? Just like you said, firstly, it's just like it was everywhere. One, two. I wasn't sure where this film. I honestly was lost in this film. That's all I can say, and that's all I'm gonna say right now because I don't know how to personally describe this film at all.
Well, for me, in my number two spot, I have Aliens. I think this was a good sequel. I feel like it was the only good sequel in this franchise. It was true to Ripley. It was true to the premise of the original movie. We were introduced to all these new characters that we were able to connect with. And by the time we got to that final battle with Ripley and Newt and that guy whose name I cannot remember and the other android, it's like okay, I kind of like these people, and it made me like an android. Like you spent most of that, all of that first movie, not liking or trusting androids, and then this one, by the end, is like I don't know. I don't know. Aliens is just an amazing movie, and like I said to Tuan in our podcast, like for me, it's up there with The Godfather Part Two and T2 and Halloween Two. It's one of those amazing sequels that almost overshadows the original. So what about you, Tuan? What's in your second spot?
My second spot will be the first Alien movie as well. Um, it was a great introduction. Hmm? Oh shit, my bad. I'm gonna say that over. Um, my second slot will go to the original Alien movie. I think this was a great introduction into the series. Um, it definitely set us up really well for what we should have had in some of the other sequels, but I am glad we started strong with this series. Sigourney Weaver as Ripley is kind of one of those roles that it felt like it was made to be. She really like took over took over the movie, and it was interesting because I do remember when we reviewed it that she really wasn't even like top billing at the time when this movie first came out. It was one of the other actors, but Sigourney Weaver was just like so good as like Ripley, and that like her character, she's really the only one to kind of carry along into some of the other movies, and it was really interesting to see that, especially for the time that this movie came out in, and like the type of role that her character had, but everything else here was great. Like the rest of the cast was good, and they what this movie did, which some of the other ones don't do, is it made the cast, not well not cast, but made the characters feel like they were actually like all like good like coworkers who kind of like knew each other, like they kind of played around with each other, kind of jabbed at each other a bit, and it felt not not, I don't want to say like a family, but you just have like that communal type of vibes with coworkers that you're cool with. And for this group of people who have to live together as well, it felt like they had been there for a while, and they were all like fine with each other. And not to mention the atmosphere of this movie was really good. It felt very like claustrophobic on the ship, and the ship itself looked very put together for it to be, especially with it being a practical set for the time period. It looks very detailed. Everything looks great. The effects look great. That initial chest burster scene still gets me to this day. Um, it's just put together really well, and I feel being the first one of this franchise, someone like coming into it and seeing this first, it doesn't surprise me they would want to like watch more after this.
Elion, what's in your second spot?
This one I had to fight with just due to the fact that I really enjoyed both films. But just like Tuan, I will have to put the first Alien movie at second. Um, Obviously, it introduced us, like just like Tuan said, it introduced us to all like the franchise, everything. I did enjoy the chemistry between the cast and their characters. I felt like they were playing their roles right. Um, it's just oh, excuse me. I can't say really anything bad about this film just because like obviously this is the first film that obviously that it's the first film that created the other films as well, and it's such a great introduction. What I enjoyed the most is like we know what this film is about. It's obviously about about an alien that's in on ship that attacks everybody else. But what I did like about it was just the fact they weren't trying to promote the alien too much, like they try to like they do with other films now, especially now in Hollywood, where like you have to see the alien all the like not the alien, but just like the villain all the time. You have to see the kills all the time. While this one, it was more of like it was a good balance. Um, on top of that, I love the special effects. They did such a great job with the alien coming out of the chest. That's like one of the most iconic like scenes that everybody's gonna remember. It's still one of the most iconic scenes. That's all I could say for my number two spot.
Well, why don't you take us home, Elion? What's in your number one spot?
It's Aliens. I just love that film. It was so good. Um, like I know that the first film was like a suspense. Like it was supposed to be a horror and suspense, but what I did enjoy about the second one, it became like an action kind of thriller, and that I don't know how to explain. I love the story. I love the cast. I what I enjoyed the most is like they wanted us to feel closer to Ripley, especially like even though we understand that we got attached to Ripley in the first film. I like that we get to see another side of Ripley where this little girl actually shows like what's the word I'm looking for? That you showed her that hmm I'll come back to it in a second if it comes back to my head. But it was well made. I have no cons to this film one bit. That ending scene where she's fighting the mother, literally the mother of all Xenomorphs, the queen, and I I don't know what else to say. Just like I'm like right now I'm just smiling about it because like I can just go back to I can watch this film again. Like I would enjoy watching this all over again and not feel like I have to look at my phone or anything like out of boredom. Like just because it's a very engaging film in my opinion.
Well, for me, in my number one spot, I will have to put Alien. I I'm just right now remembering the conversation that Tawana had when we were reviewing it, and the fact that it took almost what 30, 40 minutes before we actually even saw the alien, and I wasn't bored because for that first half hour or so, we were being introduced to the cast. We were seeing their connection. We were seeing them bond. We were getting the backstory. It just felt so natural and organic and just like chill. It didn't seem forced. The acting was good. The performances were good, and you got to know the characters. So when they finally started being picked off one by one, it was like, okay, damn, this is insane. I'm actually feeling stuff. Like I was feeling anger, I was feeling sadness, I was all over the place because the movie made me feel. And again, like you mentioned, Elian, the less is more. Like the fact that we didn't see too much, we weren't like being force fed the xenomorph, also helps. So for me, it's my number one. What about you, Tuan? What is your number one?
My number one has to go to Aliens. I felt that it was a great follow up to the first movie, and it gave us, you know, it gave us more, a little bit more going on in this one than the first one. And while I did, like that the first one, it was kind of a bit of a slow burn in that sense. I felt like this, this will up the ante, but in a good way, because sometimes you can get, movies where they try to go all out for like the sequel, but it feels a little too much. But this one felt like that sweet spot where we got dialed up, we got a lot more going on here, but it also didn't feel like too much was going on. And once again, Sigourney Weaver as Ripley definitely, you know, made this what it was. I feel like without her, this movie really wouldn't have worked in my opinion without her and what we got like happening. We got a lot more action going on. I thought like the casting was good. Like Bill Paxton was great here. um, all the action we got going on. I just feel like it just upped the ante like to that level that we kind of not necessarily like need it, but to where they made the sequel work. And out of all the ones, this is the one I feel I probably will come back to the most, and give a rewatch to if I wanted something to put on. And yeah, I just think it's just one of those sequels that it's like one of those best type sequel movies, and it in my opinion it surpassed the first one a bit for me.
Well, there we have it, guys. That's our official rankings for the Alien franchise. We ranked all six movies because we reviewed all six movies leading up to Alien Romulus, but we still have 2 weeks or so before that movie comes out. So next week, please join us as Tuan takes over the podcast because we will be reviewing one of his favorite horror movies, which will be
You're next.
a movie that I've never seen before. So I'm actually pretty hyped. Is it is it like a slasher movie? Is it one of those like
It's
Home Alone type?
it's like a home invasion, kind of like on some strangers type of vibes,
Oh,
but
okay. I'm intrigued. I've never
it's
seen
with
this
a
movie before.
family though. Instead of just like a couple, it's like a whole family.
Tune in to us next week as we review Your Next. Good night.
If you like this episode, please check out the Haddonfield Horror podcast from big series like Friday the 13th, Halloween, and Saw, or our one-off reviews like The Blackening and Hereditary. You can follow Haddonfield Horrors on Instagram and TikTok where the hosts post updates and mini reviews. Full episodes are available on several podcasting platforms and YouTube. If you're listening to us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. The Haddonfield Horror podcast is produced by Mark Smart,
Maria Perez.
Twan Griffin, and Elian Cordova.
Themed by Lethal Injection and edited by Mark Smart.
The Haddonfield Horrors podcast is a Letters to Media production.
Should we do an intro?